Day 2 off the beaten crack, our first full day in Athlone. And I'm Martin Nutty.
And I'm John Lee. Welcome to our road trip, and it's all made possible by our travel partner, Tourism Ireland. Those folks helped us in many ways put this together, and you know, that can help with all the information and inspiration you need for your next trip to the island of Ireland at Ireland.com. And already we're going to be seeing reasons why you should stop in the hidden heartlands. We fortified ourselves with the full Irish breakfast and then some at the Sheraton Hotel, headed out to the crisp fall air, and made our way down to the mighty Shannon River.
And crossing the Shannon, of course, is famed in many ways in Irish history. But our appointment that day was quite early. 9:30 at what is commonly understood to be the oldest pub in Ireland and may very well be the oldest pub in the world. We were on our way to Sean's Bar.
So we entered the ancient confines of Sean's Bar, and we met up right away with Timmy Donovan, who's going to bring us into some of the legend and lore around Sean's Bar.
Yeah, Timmy's great crack, and he is essentially the Shanachie of Sean's Bar. And we started out our conversation on how Timmy connects to Sean's Bar, because he's been there quite a while. I understand you've worked at Sean's for 37 years, is that right?
You are very correct, yes. I'd have got less for murder. I'll be out now.
You're local to Athlone.
I am. I only live about 4 miles away here on the lake.
And how did you fetch up here?
My parents would have been friends with Sean Fitzsimons, who owned the bar at the time. And I was actually working in a pub across the street. And the owner of the pub was moving to England. And he wanted me to come and manage a pub for him in England. I had no intention of leaving Athlone ever. I was hugely involved with the rowing club here. And didn't know I was going to go to England when I could be up that lake 6 days a week or 7 days a week. Not a fear of it. So I came over here to work with Sean Fitzsimons then. And that's how I started here, and I've been here since. And it's not like work. I don't consider it a job. I come in each day, I'm meeting with groups of people, and I'll sit down with all those people. You're giving them an experience that they're going to remember, a unique experience you're not going to find anywhere else. You're chatting with them about everything that's here in the bar, the history. It could go any direction. Somebody will say something, we're gone that direction there. Somebody will say something else, we're gone that direction. It's not planned. It happens. And as I say, you're constantly meeting people. And it's all fun, and I enjoy it.
So between the pub and the water, you're well rooted in here, and you couldn't have imagined yourself moving anywhere else.
No, I never had any intention of moving out of Athlone. Athlone is a hugely busy town. It's a very safe town. It's a lovely town. Very, very, very good people. Very good people.
What drives the economy now? Any city's been through so many changes, but I sense there must be some good industry in town or on the outskirts.
Yeah, Athlone is extremely busy. It has a huge amount of employment, pharmaceutical, electronic, and the amount of tourists that pass through Athlone is huge. Now, you have 2 reasons. You're dead centre of Ireland. Whether you're going north, south, east or west, you have to pass through Athlone. Also, you have the River Shannon, which cuts the whole way down through the country out to sea at Limerick. There's only so many crossing points on the River Shannon, and Athlone is one of them. And that is why everybody really comes through Athlone. And all the operators...
Sir, but there are 3 reasons that this is an international tourist destination, and we're talking to the man who's number 3 here in Sean's Bar.
Well, yeah, everybody comes also to see the oldest pub in the world. That brings a huge, huge amount of people here to the town. And all the tour operators then, no matter where they're going, they tend to break the journey halfway. And no matter where you are travelling to, once you hit Athlone, you're exactly halfway to wherever you're going. And they all come in here to see the oldest pub.
So talk to me about the Guinness certification of the pub. How did that come to be?
I have actually was dealing with the Guinness Book of World Record since 1997, actually, with a previous owner then at the time, Sean Fitzsimons. Now, when you're dealing with the Guinness Book of World Records, you do not give them a date. You submit all of your information, everything you have to do with the pub, and they research it. It took them 3 years of research. And in 2000, they came back to us with the oldest pub in Ireland. Now, the Guinness Book of World Records do not revisit a record, any record, as a rule for 20 years. They have actually revisited the record, and in a 20-year period, They haven't found anything that's older anywhere in the world. The nearest pub that came anywhere close to us was a pub in Nottingham in England. And I deliberately went over just to see this pub. Nottingham Castle is built on a huge big hill or a cliff, and at the base is a cave. And there's actually a pub built into the cave beneath Nottingham Castle. The roof of the pub is the cave. You'll be sitting there having your pint, and next thing you start dripping on you. You just move over. It's a beautiful, beautiful pub called the Old Trip to Jerusalem. And its official Guinness Book of World Record dating is 1198. Our official Guinness Book of World Record dating is 900. We are 300 years older than anything in the world. And when they revisit that record again, we believe they will have us in it as the oldest pub in the world.
It's funny, of course, when you're outside because it doesn't look ancient.
Yeah.
And it's only when you come in here that you get a real sense of the age of the place. It's quite deceptive.
You take a step back in time when you walk through those doors.
Yeah, it really struck me that. And then, of course, you see the wattle and wicker on the wall, and you're like, okay, here we go. It's the real thing.
Martin, one thing that surprised me on our way to Sean's was finding Viking imagery. We saw these Viking tour signs up, and I associate the Vikings with the Dublin area. I did not know how far their history reached into the center of Ireland. And let's get Timmy's take on the Viking history of the region.
Now, when you talk about Viking history here in Athlone, there is a massive piece of history here on Vikings. When the Vikings first came to Ireland, in around 795, 800, yes, they marauded, plundered, killed, stole, everything else. But then they actually settled down here on Lough Ree. Lough Ree was very strategic for them. The waterways were the highways in those days. The River Shannon cuts the whole way through the country. You're the very centre of the river, old River Shannon. Whoever controlled Lough Ree basically controlled passage up and down the country. There was two rival Viking clans who fought for control of this. One was Dublin, Wicklow, Wexford based. The other one was Limerick. They clashed here on Lough Ree. Actually, the biggest hoard of Viking gold and silver ever found in the world, up until recently, was actually found here on Hare Island in the middle of Lough Ree, 10 minutes away from us, where the Limerick Vikings, during that battle, stashed all of their goods, their valuables, on Hare Island. They lost the battle, never got to pick them up, and that's how the hoard ended up on Hare Island. When they first arrived, it was 795, 800. But then they actually settled down here on Lough Ree. One of the biggest Viking settlements in the whole country was located here, not about 10 miles away from us. They settled. They were farmers. They were traders. They traded with the locals. They intermarried with the locals. They also traded hugely with the monks here on the lake. The monks on the lake here were the first people to distill whiskey in the world. They had alcohol. The Vikings loved their alcohol, Viking drinking horns, etc. The Vikings traded hugely with the monks. Everybody thinks the Vikings and the monks clattered the hell out of one another. Not at all. They traded hugely here together because the Vikings had gold and silver. The monks on the lake here wanted gold and silver in order to make their chalices, their crosses, all of which can be seen in the National Museum today, having come from here on Lough Ree. So they actually traded together for centuries.
Some of their ancestors are still in the area, and they're coming to Sean's pub. So tell us about the oldest pub in the known world.
Bar itself has a massive, massive history. It actually dates right back to 900 AD. Now, as you were coming in the door there, you would see part of the old walls on display, made of what is called wattle and wicker, or wattle and daub, interwoven hazel sticks, held together with horsehair and clay. And what you're looking at out there, that is what is inside all of the walls here, the whole way right around and upstairs. It is the same original building, made from that wattle and wicker, and built right back in 900 AD. Now, as you were walking through the pub, did you notice the floor slopes the whole way through from front door to back door? When the pub was built in 900, that was the original drainage system. The water would flow down the hill, it'd come in the front door, it'd go straight down that slope, out the back and into the river.
Sean's is one of those bars you can just wander around and look at all the amazing history, all the stories being told by what they've decided to hang up on the walls. But besides being an ancient place, it's a contemporary place. Timmy filled us in on some of the recent history of the bar.
The pub was called Sean's in 1954. It was originally called Luain's Inn. And in 1954, a man called Sean O'Brien bought the bar, called it Sean's. He was a cattle dealer by trade, and he in turn sold it in 1970 to another Sean, a man from Dublin, Sean Fitzsimons, who would come down here with his friends at the weekend. He had a barge which he kept out the back. Himself and his friends would head up the lake, partying and drinking away for the weekend. They were back here one Sunday evening, prior to going back to Dublin. He was standing at the end of the bar, getting around a drink for himself and his friends. One of his friends was joking with him. I said, Sean, you should buy the bar. She wouldn't have to change the name of it or anything. And he turned around there and then and bought it for £5,000. And it has remained as Sean's ever since. Now, that was in 1970. So Sean began some renovations in 1970, where they discovered old coins here, which were taken up to the National Museum of Dublin, dated up there. The old walls were found to be made from wattle and wicker and carbon dated by the National Museum right back to the 900 AD.
I see you have some old clay pipes where they found.
They were also found in the renovations as well.
Well, let's move down a little bit further. And then, oh my gosh, a big display here of badges from police forces.
Police, fire and police.
Fire and police?
Now, there's a very funny story. Now, we have cabinets everywhere full of patches. They're here, they're out the back, they're upstairs. We have 4 other cabinets which have been reframed, which are full as well. Very funny story, how it all began. It is going back 37 years ago. There was a convention organised here by Irish Fire and Police with their American and Canadian counterparts. It was a 4-day convention held in one of the hotels on the outskirts of town here. It was huge. There was 350 delegates at it. It was huge. It was held in Athlone because Athlone was dead centre for all the units to come to. After day 1, 5 o'clock that evening, all 350 delegates were in here. Pints, more pints, a couple of whiskies just for good measure. And then the music started. There was another few pints then. Okay. And that was the end of the 4-day convention. For the other 3 days, instead of meeting at the hotel at 10 a.m. in the morning, everybody gathered here at 12 noon. Couple of pints. Yeah. And any business that had to be done or anything that had to be spoken about was all done out there over a scatter of pints. It was very funny. The receptionist of the hotel phoned around lunchtime on day 2. And she says, Timmy, I do not have one single delegate here for this convention. I said, I know. Yeah. And then she said, hey, we're led to believe they're all down in your place. I said, they are. And she said, well, what time are they coming out to me here at? I said, they're not. And at the very end of it then, 6 people actually handed me patches and said, would you put those up to commemorate or visit? And we put up the 6 patches. And that was 37 years ago. Over the 37 years, that has grown. And now you will actually see it repeated all over the country also. But it actually all started here 37 years ago at the convention that nobody went back to.
As we wandered through the dark confines of Sean's bar, John encountered a rather large trout inlet glass case, and that led to fishing stories.
And this guy here, because we talked about the river flowing through the pub in the early days.
Yeah.
We're on the river. We've got a lock nearby. Fishing must be big, but this is quite a catcher. Does this guy have a name?
I caught that. You have the River Shannon here right at our back door. We're 5 minutes from Lough Ree, which is a huge lake, 30 kilometres long, 10 wide, over 80 islands on Lough Ree. We will certainly be the best fishery in the whole of Ireland. Trout fishing, as you can see here, is second to none. Also, they hold here what's called the World Pike Angling Competition. Used to be held in a different country every year until they actually discovered Lough Ree. It's heading for its 15th year here now. They have not moved it. That'll tell you the quality and size of the catch here.
How big is that fish?
He's 9 pound.
That's a good sized trout.
And does he have a name?
No, actually.
Let's work on that. So then we moved into a quieter corner of the bar, and Timmy brought us even deeper into the history of Sean's bar.
The bar itself hasn't always been called Sean's, right? And there's a Luain Mac Luighdeach was
the original person
owner.
that built the bar.
So how do we know that? Is it like in the annals of the masters?
Yeah,
or,
there is.
or
Yeah, that's
where
exactly where it
is
comes
that?
from.
Yeah.
The walls are all carbon dated by the National Museum. Various artefacts were found there dated. Old coins were found there also dated, which are now on display with the National Museum. Your next crossing point, you come off Lough Ree. First crossing point you met was at the back door here. And that is why Luain built the bar, set up the crossing point, and then charged everybody to go over and back. He was thinking well ahead of himself. Now, your next crossing point downriver was Clonmacnoise. And Clonmacnoise is an ancient monastic settlement. It dates right back to 549, where St. Kieran left Lough Ree here, where on the island village Kieran he built 7 churches. He went downriver then, he founded one more monastery on the way on Hare Island, and then he went down to found Clonmacnoise in 549. He also built 7 churches in Clonmacnoise. Clonmacnoise went on to become a very, very famous place at the time. It was the centre of education for the whole of Europe, where the kings and queens of Europe all sent their children to be educated here by the monks in Clonmacnoise. Very famous place. And when Pope John Paul II, who was the very first pope to ever come and visit Ireland, when he landed in Dublin, first place he went to see was Clonmacnoise. That's how high in esteem to this day it is held by the Catholic Church.
I think a lot of people don't realize how interconnected Ireland was with the rest of Europe at that time.
Basically, Rome destroyed all of Europe. They got as far as England. They never got as far as Ireland. Everything that was destroyed to do with education was destroyed. The only educated people that were left were the monks from here in Ireland. And that's why the likes of Clonmacnoise was the centre of education for them.
Well, with that in mind, it's so old, it's been through so many phases of history. Is it haunted as well? Is there a ghost?
Well, we have plenty of spirits. Whiskey, vodka, gin, you name them, we have them.
So speaking of spirits, I understand there's some whiskey associated with this place. So tell me a little about whiskey in Sean's, but also whiskey in the region, because you've done a lot of work on that space.
I have spent over 18 years research, gone into the whole history and origin of whiskey itself. Now, going back 18 years ago, Google, that wasn't a thing. It was very much hands-on. Every week you'd be up to the National Museum. One week I'll be up there chasing that piece of history, and I'll come back with that. The following week then I'll be chasing that, and I'll come back with that, and that I never went up for whatsoever. It was hands-on, meeting with local historians, meeting with people who've written books on Lough Ree and its islands here, meeting with people that lived on these islands and getting their history that had been handed down from generation to generation. Going to lectures on the massive Viking history here on the lake, which is huge also, and they played a huge part in the actual movement of whiskey from Lough Ree right around the world. If I start talking about whiskey now, you're here for about 2 weeks.
There we go.
It was actually here, the monks in the islands of Inishkiran here and Clonmacnoise. They were the same order of monks, just in 2 different monasteries here on the lake. And they were the first people to distill whiskey in the world, where they actually took distillation. Distillation itself began in the Middle East, but not as an alcohol. Distillation began as a perfume. So the next time you're drinking whiskey, you're actually drinking perfume. And if you spill it on yourself, you'll be grand. It was the Moors. The Moors were traders from northern Spain and trade links with the Middle East at the time. Brought back various spices, etc. They also brought back to northern Spain the art of distilling this perfume. And it was the monks then from Inishkiran here, right beside us, who happened to be in northern Spain at the time on their missions. And they somehow managed to take that perfume and turn it into an alcoholic beverage. Or, in other words, it smelled lovely, and of course one of them drank it, and had a bit of a funny effect on him. Probably the best night of his life ever. But as a result, these monks actually taught that that spirit cured all illnesses. And they brought back the art of distilling that spirit with them to the 2 main monasteries of Inishkiran and Clonmacnoise. Now, the monks of Inishkiran here spoke Irish, calling this spirit Ish Gabaha, meaning the water of life, because they genuinely thought it cured everything. The monks in Clonmacnoise then spoke Latin, the international language they taught in Latin. They called it aqua vitae, also meaning the water of life. Now, these monks traded massively in this, and as a result of their trade, that spirit spread from Lough Ree right around the world. They traded with all the different factions based here on the lake throughout history, right down to and including the Vikings. When they first arrived in Ireland in around 795-800, marauded, plundered, killed, stole, but then they settled down here, and they traded hugely with the monks. Simple reason being, the Vikings loved their alcohol, Viking drinking horns, etc. But they had gold and silver, and the monks on the lake wanted gold and silver to make their chalices, their crosses, all of which can be seen in the National Museum today, having come from here on Lough Ree. Everybody thinks the Vikings and the monks clattered the heck out of one another. Not at all. They traded together for centuries. The Vikings took the art of distillation with them, from Lough Ree back to the Scandinavian countries. And to this day, the national drink of all the Scandinavian countries is a drink called aqua vi, coming from aqua vitae, from the monks in Clonmacnoise. That's actually where it came from. The Vikings took it further afield, from Scandinavia, onto Iceland, Greenland, and onto Newfoundland, where they landed at a place called Landsaw Meadows, bringing the art of distillation with them directly from here on Lough Ree.
When we started our day today, we were at the Sheraton Hotel, and the breakfast buffet stationed by the oatmeal was a bottle of Sean's whiskey, and we come in here and we see bottles of Sean's whiskey lined up behind the bar. Tell us about Sean's whiskey in particular.
Now, what we've done with whiskey We said, you do have the whole origin travel of whiskey from Loughree, beginning here and travelling right around the world. You have the name whiskey comes from here, where after the Vikings, you had the English armies of King Henry II and III based here on the lake. They had a huge army here. Simple reason being, they were dead centre of Ireland with that huge army. They could mobilise them, deploy them, up and down the length and breadth of the country, very quickly by using the waterways of the Shannon system. The waterways were the highways in those days. They were based right next door to the monks in Inishkiran. And of course, these monks cashed in on this big time, traded hugely with these English armies. We even have a record of a ship belonging to King Henry II leaving Loughree. And between both of those two monasteries, that ship's entire cargo was whiskey only. They were not busy praying. They were the biggest bootleggers in the world at the time. The first written account of whiskey in the world comes from here also, where the monks in Clonmacnoise write about a local chieftain who on Christmas Day consumed way too much aqua vitae and keeled over and died. So much for being aqua vitae, the water of life. It did not do what I said in the bottle. In his case, it was more aqua mortis than aqua vitae. That's the first written account of whiskey in the world. You actually have how it began, when it began, who it began by, how it travelled right around the world, who took it there and when. You have the name whiskey coming from here and the first written account of whiskey in the world. All here, all fully researched over an 18-year period.
How about Sean's whiskey in particular?
Now, we took it back to its origin. We based our whiskey totally on what was available to the monks on the islands of Inishkiran. We actually took it, we met with our master distillers. We went back to see what was there, what could they have used, what could they have flavoured it with. That's how we took it right back to its origin. Now, we took a big gamble on it. We had gone off mainstream whiskey, really, full production from day one. And you didn't know whether it was going to come back, or what shape or form it would come back in, or whether it was going to work at all. And if it hadn't, I'd have had to leave the country very quickly, put it that way. Yeah, but it came back then the smoothest whiskey you'll ever come across. We left it to mature. Now, here's a funny one. For a whiskey to mature, Scottish whiskey takes 3 years to mature. Irish whiskey takes 3 years and 1 day to mature, just to be a day older than the Scots. Our whiskey matures for 4.5 years, and our single malt matures for 8 years. And as I say, it came back to smoothest whiskies you'll ever come across. And our whiskey has gone crazy on us, absolutely crazy.
So you have two whiskies, am I correct? There's a Luain and there's...
Yeah, Luain and our Clonmacnoise edition. Our Luain is our original, matured for 4.5 years. And then our single malt, which is our Clonmacnoise edition, and that matures for 8 years.
We're sitting in here basically before hours. It's calm, it's quiet. I assume it gets later on as the day moves on.
Listen, as soon as we open our doors, there will be busload. And in particular this week, with the NFL game here, you tend to get the week before it and the week after are extremely busy. So as soon as we open the door 10:30 in the morning, it will be busload.
Well, I get the feeling everybody who walks in the door is kind of a celebrity, but we're looking around the walls and all the great photography around it. We're going to spend more time looking at, but we get the sense that Martin Nutty and I are not the first celebrities who have come in. Who are some of the real celebrities who have been here?
Well, do you know something? Half the time, I don't actually know who I'm talking to. People will say to me, do you know who that was? And I say, no. And then they tell me, and I still wouldn't have a clue who the hell they are. But everybody is treated the same, whether it's a student with the arse of his trousers, to a bag manager, to a film star. Everybody's treated the same. And we must have had every musician that you could think of here in Ireland. Even right down to U2 have been here at one stage. I didn't recognise them either at the time. That was another boo-boo. Yeah. You'd have film stars from all over the world.
You talked about J.R. was a...
Yeah.
J.R. Ewing.
Larry Hagman.
Larry
Hagman and Linda Gray, yeah.
Yeah.
They've all been here. They were actually, when Dallas was at its height, it was huge here in Ireland, as it was worldwide, the old Dallas. And Linda Gray would come over here with a friend of mine who was co-founder of Christie's Auctioneers. They'd done a lot of charity work and that with her. But Linda Gray was brought over by Newbridge Silverware, well-known company here in Ireland, who launched a jewellery range, Newbridge Jewellery. And if there was a big event here in Ireland, Linda Gray was brought over by them, and she would showcase their jewellery. And it would be picked up by every paper, magazine, TV company going. But every time she came over, there was always maybe 4 or 5 or 6 of the old original cast of Dallas with her. There was always a huge gang of them come over together. And including Larry Hagman. He was a very funny character. He was sitting there having a coke. I was having a chat with him. And he said to me, There is nothing more I would like than to be sitting here having a glass of champagne. And they were all laughing. And then they told me that, they all had their trailers on site when they were filming. And they said Larry would walk out of his trailer first thing in the morning with a glass of champagne in hand. That glass of champagne never emptied all day long. It was topped up. He was laughing himself. He said, that's true. He said, I am possibly the only person in the whole of America that does not remember Dallas. Very funny character, lovely people, very down to earth.
We usually end an episode with what we call the Seamus plug, where you get a chance to plug anything you'd like. You can plug your pub, your bar, your whiskey, all of it, or Athlone, or whatever you'd like to kind of plug.
Well, you've mentioned just about everything that you could plug. The bar, oldest pub in the world. Whiskey gone back to its origin. Athlone, the best town you will ever come across anywhere in Ireland. Friendliness, huge amount to see here, huge amount to do. A great place to base yourself. And this is huge here. A lot of people have based themselves here in Athlone. Simple reason being, you're dead centre of Ireland, and it's a great way of seeing the whole country. You can take it 2 days, head up north, come back, see what's around here. Athlone is based in what's called Ireland's hidden heartlands, with a huge amount of things to do here in a 50-mile radius of it. Huge amount. Next, you take another day or two, head west, come back, spend a few days here in Athlone, then go south. Now you're covering the whole country. But it's a great way to see the whole country at Athlone. And the amount, you'd be spoiled for choice. The amount of fine restaurants, bars, hotels, historical castles, you name it. The River Shannon, tours on the River Shannon, boat trips on it. It is a fantastic town. You cannot promote it Athlone more highly.
And with that, on behalf of our listeners, John Lee and myself, we'd like to thank Timmy Donovan for giving us some insight into Ireland's oldest pub, or bar, I should say. It's been a total pleasure, and we're looking forward to having a little bit of Sean's whiskey.
We will certainly get you a little whiskey to have a sample. And it's an absolute pleasure to meet both of you, and the best wishes with your podcast.
Thanks so much.
Hey, John, great crack had with Timmy Donovan of Sean's Bar, and not a drop taken by either of us, I might add.
Yeah, that was an early morning for us, but I want to recommend this place to people because it's a lot bigger than you think it is when you walk in the door. There's all kinds of rooms in the back. There's indoor spaces. There's indoor-outdoor spaces. There's kind of a garden area that leads right down to the Shannon River, where we met some chaps in a Shannon River cruiser. It's a great slow tourism way to wander around the Shannon River area. These beautiful boats that you can pick up at several spots, including Athlone. And with an hour and a half of training, you're out on the river sailing the routes of the Vikings, we find out. And there we met Felix from Hamburg, and I think it was his nephew, who were cruising the Shannon. It was Felix's 7th time doing this, so that just shows you the appeal of this approach to slow tourism. And he had one of the great lines early on in our off-the-beaten-track trip when he described the Irish as weirdly friendly.
Well, I can say I will sign up for certainly being weird. But onwards to our next segment, which will be dropping next week. And in that segment, we actually head back across the Shannon, along with Vincent Harney of Athlone Walking Tours. And don't forget, each episode that we cut has its own web page, and we'll be posting pictures on those episode pages of some of these places that we had visited. So make sure you check us out at irishstewpodcast.com.
And actually, another place you'll see our podcast featured is Irish Central. Our media partner is giving us marquee billing, usually on the front page or the landing page of their wildly popular website, the world's global Irish news site. So check out irishcentral.com as another place to get your Irish stew. We thank them, and of course, we thank our travel partner, Tourism Ireland.
Irish Stew is produced by John Lee, Martin Nutty, and Bill Schultz. Editing, mixing, and mastering by Bill Schultz. Music on Irish Stew was composed and performed by Rosa Nutty, with Donald Bowens on drums, Cathal O'Riordan on bass and synthesizer. For more on Rosa Nutty's music, please visit rosanutty.com.